Hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Liliana. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Floretta. Shout out to Emily, or Chanel, sorry. Shout out to Chanel. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Zanaya and Jenna. It's okay, Floretta. I hope you feel better soon. Shout out to Brady. Hello everyone, welcome. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Brady. Shout out to Ariella. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Aisa. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Ariella. Thank you for showing me how to pronounce your name. Shout out to Ariella. Shout out to Marta. Shout out to Sparkle. Shout out to Ranaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Peyton. Shout out to Tyla. Shout out to, is it Callie? Thank you for showing me how to pronounce your name. Callie. Shout out to Briella. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Callie, okay. Shout out to Jackie. Shout out to Alora. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Pablo. Shout out to Aaliyah. Welcome everyone. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for your support. Shout out to Lauren. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Sunnier. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Iago. Shout out to Joanna. Shout out to Angelina. Shout out to Darlet. Shout out to, is it Ela? Let me know if I spelled it incorrectly. Shout out to Tyler. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Malia. Shout out to Ruthan. Or Ruthann. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Audrey. Shout out to Bo. Shout out to Oisha. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Emma. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Peotone. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Jayla. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Portia. Shout out to Declan. Thank you for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Ariana. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bella. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Michaela. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Emery. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Dylan. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Eric. Shout out to Wesley. Shout out to Marie. Shout out to Madsen. Shout out to Eric. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Naifa or Nafa. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Jada. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Yeon. Shout out to Amari. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to JP. Shout out to Alexandrine. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Bryson. Shout out to Livia. Shout out to Katie. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Salamo Alegria. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you, Lauren. I truly appreciate it, your support. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Kimmy. Shout out to Ellie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Thomas. Shout out to Holly. Oh, I just got Holly. Shout out to Zaina. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to, is it Christian? Christian. Shout out to, you're welcome, Ellie. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to, sorry, the chat is going fast. Shout out to Brianna. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Shout out to Jane. Shout out to Paulina. Shout out to Bila. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Emma Faith. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Bonna. Shout out to Meryl. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Monica. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Gracie. Shout out to Kinley. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Daisy. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for being here. On to the next page. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Also, thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here. Write your name again if I haven't gotten to you. Shout out to Valeria. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Lavinia. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Annie. Shout out to Felix. Oops. Shout out to, is it Binka? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Elisa. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Josh. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Kavi. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Myla. Shout out to Claire. Shout out to Athena. Shout out to Yunche. Shout out to Lucy. Shout out to Veda. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Andy. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Romani. Shout out to Monica. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Chelsea. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Nancy. Shout out to Evelyn. Thank you so much for your patience, everyone. Shout out to Kaya. Shout out to Alice. Shout out to, is it Osmi? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to, was it Lolly? Shout out to Barbara. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Giselle. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Ezra. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Isabel. Shout out to Erica. Thank you. Thank you for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Carly. Shout out to Yunche. Shout out to Shaya. Or Chaya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Mono. Shout out to Peyton. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Cami. Shout out to Eliza. Thank you for subscribing. Eliza or Elisa. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Aziana. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to, is it Maz? Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to David. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lee Young. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Denver. Shout out to Sammy. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Astrid. Shout out to Lorena. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Destiny. Shout out to Luis. Shout out to Molly. Shout out to Amzi. Shout out to Natalia. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Logan. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Kayla, or Kyla. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Layla. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lauren. What is it? Lauren. Do I put Warren? Shout out to Warren. Shout out to Umaiko Shane. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kaizan. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Lainey. Shout out to Abigail. Thank you so much for your patience. I wish I could write faster, but nonetheless, thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Isla. Shout out to Tristan. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Presley. Shout out to, is it Lilia? Lilia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Deep Shika. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Louisiana. Shout out to Amara. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Nikki. Shout out to Adriana. Shout out to Jason. Shout out to Briley. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Jaden. Shout out to Christina. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Eleanor. Shout out to Caitlin. Shout out to Amariah. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Daisy. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Maham. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you so much for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Or write it again if I haven't gotten to you. Thank you for your patience. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Anita. Shout out to Matthew. Shout out to Lilia. Sorry if I mispronounced her name. Shout out to Janaya. Shout out to Kevin. Shout out to Paisley. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Peyton. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Yasmani. Shout out to Vani. Shout out to Lindsay. Shout out to Miriam. Shout out to Caitlin. Whoops, why'd I put an E? There we go. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Peyton. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Angelica. Shout out to, is it Kiara or Sierra? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Lainey. Shout out to Jamie. Shout out to Starlin. Shout out to Isabel. Shout out to Sashti. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Tervoria. Happy birthday. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Megan. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate your support. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Azael. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Roshane. Happy birthday. Shout out to Aishlyn. Sorry if I mispronounced her name. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Janelle. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Vani. Thank you so much. Shout out to Paris. Shout out to Teresa, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Samara, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Julie, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Dax, thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Shout out to Charlotte, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Angela, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Braxton. Good luck, Braxton. Wishing you all the best. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Layliana. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Rosalind. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to, is it Letty? Shout out to Julia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Isla. Thank you for subscribing. I don't know if Dax saw, but shout out to Dax. Thank you so much for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Samaya, or Samia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Layton. Shout out to Timothy. Shout out to Molly. Shout out to Jameson. Shout out to Paige. Is it Paige? Pagan? Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Priscilla. Shout out to Noah. Shout out to Adam. Shout out to Shia, or Shea. Shout out to Azaria. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Elaine. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Alina. Shout out to Ziri, or Zairi. Shout out to Arkin. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Andre. Shout out to Cami. Shout out to Veronica. Shout out to Eliza. Shout out to Adeline. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Michelle. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kason. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kari. Shout out to Tatum. Shout out to Martin. Shout out to Yvonne. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Journey. Shout out to Haley. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Mick. Happy birthday. Shout out to Arkin. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Titus. Shout out to Virginia. Shout out to Alma. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Kiner. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to TJ. Shout out to Autumn. I'm gonna put Autumn over here so it fits. There we go. Shout out to Florina. I'm gonna put Benjamin over here so it fits. Shout out to Benjamin. Shout out to Cameron. No, not, what was it? Carmen. Shout out to Carmen. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Write your name in the chat if I haven't gotten to you. Or write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for your patience. I truly appreciate it. Because I know I don't write as fast as I wish I could. Shout out to Abada Cam. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Carson. Shout out to Zaylee. Happy birthday. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Chelsea. Shout out to Fiona. Shout out to Hiyoko. Shout out to Erin. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Leo, happy birthday. Shout out to Jolie. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Ross. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Ari, happy birthday. Shout out to Black. Shout out to Carter. Shout out to Avaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Quinn. Shout out to Gabriel. Shout out to, yes, Black, I got you. Happy birthday. Shout out to Presley. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Abigail. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kalia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kimberly. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Reagan. Shout out to Milena. Shout out to Rihanna. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Gervier. Shout out to Terry. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jared. Shout out to KK. Shout out to Adele. Shout out to Letty. Shout out to Zanity. Shout out to Mia Bella. Shout out to Gabriella. Shout out to Paula. Shout out to Ollie. Shout out to Penelope. Shout out to Arlie. Happy birthday. Shout out to Alejandro. Shout out to Jack. Shout out to Bria. Shout out to Chan Bin. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Vero. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Gabriel. Shout out to Mimi. Shout out to Valerie. Shout out to Elijah. Shout out to Gannon. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Hina. Shout out to Remy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Yoki Gia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Michael. Shout out to Barbara. Shout out to Paris. Shout out to Kevin. Shout out to Paisley. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Elisa or Eliza. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Alicia. Shout out to Samantha. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Payson. Whoops, Payson. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Lyrica. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Adam. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Isabel. Shout out to Zoe. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Nevaeh. Shout out to Darcy. Whoops. Darcy. Shout out to Nina. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Alani. Shout out to Violet. Shout out to Mariah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Maya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Annabelle. Shout out to Emily. Oh no, I don't think I spelled that right. Emily, can you write your name again if I spelled it wrong? Shout out to, let me see. Oh yeah, Emily. Shout out to Emily. Thank you for writing your name again. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Braylon. Shout out to Larissa. Shout out to Zariah. Shout out to Ivy. Shout out to Havana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Steven. Or Stefan. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Malia. I'm gonna write your name over here so it fits. Or Malaya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ollie. Or Allie. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aaron Vin. Shout out to Lilia. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to write your name. And thank you for your patience. Excuse me. Shout out to Winter. Shout out to Larissa. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Logan. Shout out to Nova. Shout out to Jack. Shout out to Aria. Shout out to Mondo. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Georgia. Shout out to Jackson. Shout out to Karen. Shout out to Malachi. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Silas. Shout out to Grayson. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Janaya. Shout out to Ramsey. Shout out to Joelle. Shout out to Livy. Shout out to Zakira. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Carter. Shout out to Jesus. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Soli. Shout out to Dariana. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Edith. Shout out to Roman. Shout out to Saldine. Hi, Saldine. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Desi. Shout out to Tim. Shout out to Noemi. Shout out to Skylar. Thank you for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Anissa, or Anessa. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Shira. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Soraya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Rylan. Shout out to Sylvie. Shout out to Una. Shout out to Taylor. Shout out to Vienna. Shout out to Clarissa. Shout out to Isaiah. Shout out to Raya. Shout out to Aisha. Shout out to Audra. Shout out to Mir Rose. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Crazy Bean. Shout out to Santiago. Shout out to Belle. Shout out to Miles. Shout out to Marlene. Shout out to Tori. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Amzi. Shout out to Brina. Shout out to Helena. Shout out to Ben. Shout out to Dashka. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Lila. Shout out to Cosmo. Shout out to Haley. Thank you for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Devin. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Victoria. Shout out to Matthias. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Shiloh. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Ethan. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Sadie. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Aaron. Shout out to Luke. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to Abigail. Shout out to Stephanie. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Aloe. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Quinn. Shout out to Isla. Shout out to Cassidy. Shout out to Samara. Shout out to Ayana. Shout out to Kaden. Shout out to Obed. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Jemiah. Shout out to Donica. Shout out to Oliver. Shout out to Alondra. Shout out to Maggie. Shout out to Yael. Shout out to Autumn. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for your patience. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. I know I'm not the fastest writer, so I appreciate your patience. Write your name if I haven't gotten to you. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Charm. Shout out to Zuri. Shout out to Raya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Yoselin. Shout out to Matthias. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to, is it Bex? Bex. Ben. Ro. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Shauna. Shout out to Allie. Shout out to Jules. Shout out to Issa. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Rosie. Bye, Ramon. Have a great night. Shout out to Ramon. Shout out to Lillianne. Thank you so much for your kind words. I appreciate your support. Thank you. Shout out to Alina. Shout out to Ivy. Shout out to Syra. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Alina. Oh, I got Alina right here. Shout out to Connie. Shout out to Prayson. Shout out to Sharon. Shout out to Jenna. Shout out to Shiloh or Shiloh. Shout out to Eden. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Kay or Kai. Shout out to Remy. Oh, shout out to Matthias. Shout out to Randy. Shout out to Uriel. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Keisha. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Carly. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Mikey. Shout out to Water Productions. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Paulette. Shout out to May. Shout out to Jeremy. Shout out to Char or Shar. Shout out to Sydney. Yes, I live stream every day around the same time. Same time as this. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Alexander. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out. Shout out to Storm. Shout out to Cutter. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Smudge. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Amani. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Ronaldo. Shout out to Amani. Shout out to Gianna. Shout out to Kat. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Lainey. Shout out to Yoser. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aranza. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Zauri. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Jay. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Janie. Shout out to Nova. Shout out to Aniston. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Nyla. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Yazed. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Oakley. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Tess. Shout out to Matthias. Shout out to Daniel. Shout out to Jesus. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to, is it Arlie? Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Caitlin. Bye, Matthias. Have a great night. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Jaden. Shout out to Aspen. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Xander. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Xander. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jace. Shout out to Sebastian. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Austin. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Isla. Shout out to Amani. Shout out to Stace. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you for your patience. Oh. Write your name if I haven't gotten to you. Also subscribe if you want to support my channel. I post other content that I hope you can check out and also support. I would truly appreciate it. Shout out to Ness. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Shawnee. Shout out to Emery. Shout out to Donnie. Or Danny. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aishlin. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Lindsay. Shout out to shout out to me. I'm NessDIYcorner. I'll just put Ness. Shout out to May. Shout out to Matthias. Shout out to Xavier. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to Haley. Shout out to Yan Yan. Shout out to Heidi or Haiti. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Araya. Shout out to Liliana. Oops. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Sawyer. Shout out to Kimmy. Shout out to Bora. Shout out to Eshi. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Justine. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to excuse me, Joelle. Shout out to Tommy. Sawyer, I'm glad I made your day. Thank you also for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Cynthia. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Amira. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Makita. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ranjani. Whoops. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to iPerry. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Did I spell it correctly? Oh yeah, I did. Shout out to Talia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Allison. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Joel. Shout out to Stranger Things. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Sawyer. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Belle. Shout out to Cody. Shout out to Layton. Shout out to Zakaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Jacob. Shout out to Arfa. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Alicia. Shout out to Korea. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Yuritsa. Shout out to Robert. Shout out to Mallory. Shout out to Monica. Shout out to Theodora. Shout out to Gabriel. Shout out to Malia. Shout out to Presley. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to Tokido. Shout out to Denise. Shout out to Dodge. Shout out to Vecna. Shout out to Aaliyah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Devesh. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Marty. Shout out to Harley. Shout out to Demogorgons. Shout out to Sabella. Shout out to Ellie? No, what was it? Oh, I missed it. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Ellie. Thank you for your patience. Shout out to Haroon. Shout out to JJ. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Noah. Shout out to Floor. Happy birthday, Floor. Shout out to Aries. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Yada. Shout out to Haroon. Shout out to Sanai. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to Jeremy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Isabella. Oh, I'm gonna write you over here so your name fits. Shout out to Sadie. Shout out to Helia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Isabelli. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Oreo. Shout out to Hodaya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to AC. Thank you. Thank you for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Lou. Shout out to Camila. Happy birthday. Shout out to Violet. Shout out to Liana. Shout out to Maggie. Shout out to Elena. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to these people. Please like and subscribe. I live stream every day and I do shout outs. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out and support. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to write your name. I will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye. Thank you for being here.